Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 26th of April 2020, I am starting a look at the second release in the Mark trilogy, and the first story in that release, Interstitial. But before I begin, in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. As such, they actually took, they actually put into place a policy to scapegoat creators, meaning I have to say that this video is not intended for children. It's not aimed at kids. It's not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Doctor's a family show, that can't be watched by kids, but this video is with all the videos on my channel, is coming at the show from the perspective of an adult. So as always, viewer discretion is advised. That being said, we're actually starting a look today at the first at the first story, the first episode of the first story in this two-parter. Obviously it is which is the first parter is Interstitial. Now what's nice about this release is that this is actually two stories written by two new authors to Big Finish. Interstitial is written by Carl Rowans, and is actually, the first episode is great. It's not a perfect episode. There are definitely some first-time writing mistakes, especially for audio. There are like things like, oh, look at that, look at this. But Rowans does do a good job of writing, of writing and setting up this this very different sort of plot, and this very different sort of story. The very interesting little bits of plot is sort of just created as the story goes on, and as the story goes on, you get to see something weird. Like you see we have this set on a space station that isn't Space Station Nerva, though it has a similar design to Space Station Nerva, because, you're doing Space Station, it's sort of let's reference it because that's fun. But what's going on is that the Doctor, Nissa, Tegan, and Mark arrive on this space station, and there is this entire, there's, experiments going on with interstitial time, which is, already interesting and fun, but what creates more, a lot more interesting things is that it's something where you get to see, you get to see, bits of the story, being done with, being done with what the story is doing, and what things, where the plot is going. It's this which is this very very different sort of plot because of it. Like you're having to deal with like an appearance of Homo habilis on this space station, and just a bunch of different little things that are weird. And you really get to see what um, you know you get to see what the story is doing. You know, something weird. Um, you know, uh, there is this very very different um, uh, this very very different sort of plot where you're dealing with all these different a bunch of different characters, and you have leading up to a cliffhanger of Tegan might have been regressed back, and it's playing up with some very high concepts, which is laudable for especially for a first time story, though it doesn't quite work. Though I will say, Romans really nails the character of Mark and his development. Like, I on television, the domestic scenes in the TARDIS are often my least favorite point. But here, there's a really, really good one where Nissa and Mark talk after his first night on the TARDIS, where he couldn't get used to sleeping in a bed, understanding any sort of luxury. Remember, Mark was a slave. He was at the very bottom, and it's a really interesting scene, and one that I just think does a good job of being of being this different little this different little um, this very different story because of it. Like it's different, and it's a little it's a little more interesting than what you think, but it's enough to make you feel just feel a little sad, because there is the ending with it. um, it's it's something that but it's something that I really really like. So and it creates a really really nice story. So overall, I'd have to give part one of Interstitial an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 26th of April 2020, and I just finished listening to part 2 of Interstitial. This second episode does a really, really good job of putting things together and creating something really, really cool, and giving explanations for what's going on, and a unique sense of plotting and storytelling. Because this is, after all, at its core, a story all about, an interesting little story all about interstitial time, where you have, different characters in a sense of doing something different and something weird, and just playing around with who they are, you know in playing around with what they're doing. You have the whole idea of bleeding interstitial time on this idea, which is really fun, and really really a really really interesting sort of just way of telling the story, with the idea of just the interstitial time being there. It creates something new and exciting and different, and and allows the characters really to play around with. Like you have you have like the Doctor and Mark trying to figure stuff out, while Nis is trying to figure stuff out, while Tegan's trying to figure stuff out. Um, you have the Homo habilis evolving into actually a human. This character Jennings, who was on the Proxima in the earliest scenes. Um, However, there is the one thing that I will say is just a bit weak is that the resolution to the cliffhanger isn't really a resolution. It's just it wasn't really a cliffhanger after all. Um, which is weird because the sound design and everything actually set it up as a good cliffhanger. Um, like the Doctor immediately doubts himself, like, oh, Tegan might not have done it, and I might be, um, I might be in just this, I want to be holding out hope, and you know, uh, there is this different sort of, you know, it's different. Um, it's a very, very different sort of things. That the plot is doing. Uh, you know. You know. It's a different little thing. Um, you know, it's a different little thing where you get to see um, what the characters are doing, and creating just everything to be different and weird. Um, you know, it's something. Uh, you know, it's weird. And it creates this interesting stuff. Like the villain is just mad with power. This female Professor Kala, who is played by Anne Maria Nabiri, who plays just the role really with a lot of gusto, and just this good sense of real fun stuff. Um, you know, uh, there is that sense of just about everything. Um, you know, it's um, there really is the entire story is done just to do this uh, you know there's this different sort of thing. um you know um you have this sort of thing where you get the plot going on, about about the interstitial time, and just the idea of being played around with for the entire story. It makes things end just in an interesting way, for the characters. There is, you know, there is a different thing. Um, but it's something, you know, it's something different. And just overall, you get a really good sense of just fun stuff. So overall, I'd have to give part 2 of Interstitial a 9 out of 10. That being said, we added the scores and averaged them out to give Interstitial a final score of 8.5 out of 10. Thank you, everybody, for watching this short episode of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This was just a two-parter, so there isn't much actually more to talk about. Of course, if you agree with me, disagree with me, let's get a conversation going into the comments. Remember to leave a like, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And join me next time when we take a look at the second half of this release, from another new author by Big Finish, Martin Wayans, with Feast of Fear.